Hello there, Mindshakers.
Welcome to another episode of the Mindshack podcast.
This podcast has been developing and growing beyond our expectations.
And we would like to thank you for your continual support.
That's all. We hope you enjoyed today's episode.
Hey everyone, thanks again for tuning into Mindshack. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 9. Mindshack is a Gen Z podcast that focuses on discussing societal issues, entrepreneurial leadership, and borders on topics in psychology. Please do check us out on our social media, specifically at mind_shack_. That's our Instagram account and where we usually post most of our updates. We also have a YouTube channel, so please check that out. I am Christina. I'll be your main host today. And today we'll be talking about anxiety and overthinking, a very interesting topic, at least in my view. And to do so, I will be having a co-host. I'll let him introduce himself. Please go ahead.
What's good, guys? It's your boy Shane. I'm ready to get into this conversation.
Thanks, Shane. Good vibes always with Shane. We're also going to be having two lovely guests. I'll let her first introduce herself. Please go ahead.
Hi, I'm Osas, and I work as a counseling psychologist. I am so interested in the topic of anxiety and overthinking because it is the most interesting thing that happens in the brain when we are overthinking stuff.
Thanks, Osa. We're also going to be having another guest with us. Please do introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Christine. I'm a third-year social science student at ALC. I'm joining this conversation because anxiety and overthinking happen so much more than we actually talk about, and I just really wanted to be part of this conversation. Shit happens all the time, so we should normalize, going through things like this just as much as we celebrate all of our achievements.
You've definitely highlighted a main reason for us to talk about this topic is that shit does happen every day, and it's important that we figure out how to handle it and how to go about it because it is normal. But I think I'd just like to start off by asking our two guests, specifically Osaretin first. What is your perspective on mental health?
So I think mental health is as much as physical health, as much as, say, academic health, as much as occupational health. It's just another facet of your life that needs to be kept healthy and needs to be brought to the fore and needs to be, taken care of as much as every other aspect. But my perspective on mental illness is, again, like physical illness or any need for a change in the body. It is just a signal that something is wrong somewhere and something needs to be addressed.
I also really like how you differentiated the two, because I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I do have that assumption of thinking of mental illness when I'm thinking of mental health. I think it's important to differentiate the two. Christine, what about you? What's your perspective on mental health?
I really love how she differentiated it, right? And I think that the reason why you actually have to start off by explaining what exactly are you talking about is we have a tendency of only talking about mental health when we're dealing with mental illness. And for me, I am that typical person who only started dealing with my mental health once it was actually on the bad side, I guess. But, it's a process you learn and you realize that it is actually essential to living a good life or being healthy all around, like a holistic well-being, right? So it's definitely something that I think we actually need to pay more attention to, and not just in a negative sense, but also thinking about it positively, right? Just like people are always being told, hey, take care of your health, exercise and eat well and things like that. We definitely need to be having more positive conversations around how do you maintain a good mental health.
That's very, very true. And I think even just talking about maintaining mental health, I think before we even get to that place, I've heard a lot about how awareness is, the first step of change. But why, Osaratin, why do you think awareness is important when it comes to mental health?
The reason awareness of any kind is important is because there is no awareness. It's that people do not know about these things. It's that for some reason, to have an issue that you cannot physically point to and say, oh, I have an inflamed skin here, I have an inflamed patch of skin here, and we can point to it. The fact that people cannot point to something is somehow larger than life. The fact that it goes on in processes that we cannot physically point to is scary, and it shows that you are unable to deal with other aspects. It's just one tiny aspect of your life, right? But then we just think, I can't point to it. I can't really label it for sure. And it is so nuanced. Therefore, it is really terrible. And it means everything is going to die. Everyone is going to die. And we just get nihilistic thoughts, right? So I think the reason that that awareness is important is that there is no awareness. It's just open to so many definitions. It is open to certain cultural definitions that are just scary. It's open to spiritual ramifications that are mostly wrong. Essentially, that's why we need awareness, so that people do not open it to their own definitions.
Definitely. And also, I wanted to know, as a care counselor, you must know a lot about the topic and what it entails. But what has been your own journey with anxiety and overthinking?
Since I was a child, I have known that my mind is the most fantastical place you could be in. The littlest thing will happen, and I will build mansions around this thing. And sometimes nothing has even happened yet. I could just think of a scenario and just start to think, so what if this happens? And that will be the theme of my thoughts for like the next 1 week, till I run myself to like a mini depression. There's no basis for it. And it's not usually always negative. There are some good things I'll fantasize about. Now that I have found myself as, in counseling and as a psychologist, I can mention these processes and I can define these processes. But then it doesn't mean that I am not still doing all of the hard work that is needed to arrest these processes. The fact that I can label them sometimes even makes it harder for me.
I actually really agree with you, because same for me, my anxiety and most of my overthinking has started really young.
And again, it's not birthing great results, right? If there were a competition for, say, the best overthinker in life is going to become a billionaire in 3 days, I would overthink away. But because it is reducing my functionality, I am not able to deliver on what I'm supposed to be delivering. And then it is reinforcing the fact that I'm going to continue to overthink that. Then I am overthinking my overthinking.
I get what you mean. Overthinking the overthinking. But Christine, I wanted to ask you, I know, as you said, and as all of us we've all been through anxiety, overthinking. What are your ways to establish like routines that help you like stay centered?
Wow. So I guess disclaimer, not really a disclaimer, but I actually do quite a bit of counseling, and that's where I actually learned a lot of the techniques and strategies and how to stay on the sane path, because it feels like I'm going a bit insane sometimes when I'm overthinking and very anxious, right? Because it's a lot of just all over the place but not really going anywhere. It's like running in the same spot. And so like I guess one of the things that has really helped me a lot is my mom. And my mom is, I can't even overstate how great of a support system she is. I have a really great relationship with her. And she's always had this thing where she's like, you just do your best and you leave the rest. And she means it, right? And a lot of my anxiety had stemmed around like academic things and like, I have like overachieving tendencies. And if I didn't hit my goals, then I just felt like I wasn't doing enough, and, cycle begins. And so, I guess being able to have a conversation where I can be vulnerable with my parent, who I guess, we're always kind of seeking to please in a way, made it so much easier to deal with and get through. In counseling, I guess I worked a lot on where I was placing my value, right? Because when it comes back to it, I had been attaching my self-worth to my productivity levels or how much I was achieving. And so unlearning that, right? And saying, just because I didn't get this or that does not mean that I am not worthy of X, Y, and Z, right? And that was one of the biggest things, like, because it makes it so much easier to then actually really live and try things and not be worried about, am I going to make it? Am I not going to make it? And then my friends, I have a great set of friends. Great is an understatement. I love these people people who are willing to have these vulnerable and very hard conversations, right? Talking about life and not the rosy side to it. It's not a journey that you go on your own. And having and finding those people who walk this path with you, constantly we're being told we're not an island. And so you shouldn't be dealing with things like this as if you're an island. If it was a case of I could figure it out on my own, I would have figured it out a long time ago. But I didn't because, sometimes it's okay to get help.
I've literally been sitting here like snapping my fingers like, yes, wisdom, wisdom, wisdom. And I love that, you have a supportive system and that you have people to rely on and to talk about some of the struggles that you're going through. And I think that's now why I also want to get insight from Oseratin as a guidance counselor for those people who are struggling, to like lean on others and or even don't have necessarily very supportive people around them. How do you think they should help themselves moving forward with anxiety?
I really, really resonate with something Christine said. The impression I got was a sense of helplessness sometimes that comes from, these things, especially when you do not have a great support system around you. I think most importantly, right, when overthinking, it's that thoughts are racing up and down in your head, and your head is this giant ball of electricity that is just firing and firing and firing, and then you're thinking of several things and it's just running up and down in your brain. The important thing and the first step should be being able to latch on to one thought. Pick one thought and trace that thought, follow that thought, catch it, follow it through, and just allow yourself to, catch yourself in the race and just allow it follow a sort of, give it a rhythm and a melody and follow it until you then bring it to a logical conclusion. That way you're able to see the way you think, you're able to sort of follow through your thought process. And a little bit of consciousness reminds us of how ridiculous we are sometimes. Because it is happening inside of our head, we don't give it a lot of importance. But then it's really important. Let it out. Speak it. Say it out loud. Say that thought out loud. Even if it is ridiculous, even if it is embarrassing, say it out loud. Once you say it out loud, you can't think and speak at the same time. So it will stop. The thinking process will stop. And then you will start. When you speak, you hear yourself in your own voice. And then you hear how that voice sounds to an outsider. Because most of the things we think about, we cannot say to another person because we're like, no, it can't possibly be true. So when you say it out loud, again, it increases your consciousness of that, right? You can then start to question the thoughts and go, we know how unproductive it is to follow this line of reasoning, right? And then you terminate that line of reasoning. It doesn't change the fact that your brain isn't still overthinking sometimes. Your brain is looking for an outlet. Set some time aside. Give yourself, say, 15 minutes every day or 15 minutes every 5 hours and allow yourself, just tell your mind, go crazy. And use this catching yourself and letting it out. And after like a long time of trying to gain control, you actually start to see yourself gaining control and started to catch these thoughts that are not what we would necessarily believe. And then a surefire way of stopping yourself from overthinking is to get busy. When we are not working, we are thinking and then starting to overthink, right? Once you get to work, just do something. Even if it is the very thing that you are overthinking on, do something. When you start to do something and you start to concentrate and divert your attention into something, it is quite hard to think and overthink and work at the same time. So it is you tricking your mind into actually problem solving. And finally, something I have been doing in my sessions is having people do, so what is the worst that could happen? When you do what is the worst that could happen exercises, so you think in your head, so what if I fail this, I fail something? So what's the worst that could happen? The worst that could happen is I fail. And then follow that thought. What's the worst that could happen? Usually, it is showing you a step-by-step guide to problem solve through that thing that you are thinking about. And we've found that you can create a, then from that, you can create a to-do list on how to break down the task that seemed insurmountable in the beginning. So, yeah, basically, these are like things that have worked for me and I have seen work in sessions that I have had with my clients.
You have dropped so many gems. I really hope everyone listening caught onto that and will take action steps.
So, Osa, what do you think control plays a part in anxiety and overthinking?
A lot of it is hinged on control. What is happening in your head when you are anxious about something? It is that your brain is not sure whether to run away or to fight this situation, because it is somehow connected to our evolutionary brain that was the fight or flight response of, should I face this lion that is stopping me from feeding my family, or should I fight this lion, or should I run away, perhaps? So it's like those two options, should I fight or should I run away? And both of them are physical responses that take a lot of calculation and control. But in this day and age, where we are now living in issues are in the head, it is a social issue. It is relating to my job. It is relating to work. It's not something I can fight or something I can run away from. Both options where I have control and I can, plan out how I am going to do this methodically and so on. You cannot really tell how other factors are going to play out in this, this new day and age. I feel like control plays a massive role, because it is just a loss of, it is me trying to say, what if this happens? It is me trying to say, okay, I'm trying to cover all of my bases to make sure that nothing surprises me. But then you are surprising yourself by how much you can stop yourself from getting anything done, because you are freaking out about the amount of control you do not have.
So I absolutely agree with what Osaratan just mentioned, right? But I think also, like, one of the things I think that stood out for me, right, is perhaps in our generation, and not even before us, but from our generation onwards, it's been a thing of everything seems like it's high stakes. And so everything does kind of need to work the way you expect it to work so that the outcomes that you want actually happen. And the reason why I think that's happening, right, is we're kind of the generation that has access to so many things. And kind of with the saying that, with great power comes great responsibility, how many of us have heard, with all the resources you have access to, you kind of have to make something of yourself, right? And I think this societal change, like this cultural change, where there's a lot of focus on the individual. And you don't really have this thing of, no, we're all in this together. Everyone kind of is, in a way, being told it's on you, your life is on you. And it is, right? I'm not saying that it's not. However, we're not like living in a village anymore where, we all go out to hunt together and, it's a group thing. We're like being taught now that everything, you have to do it by yourself. And you have all the access that you need. And, so everything does feel like it's more high stakes, which is why I think, that aspect of control comes into play. And yeah, it's madness, but I feel like, we have societal issues that are encouraging us to end up being very anxious people and overthinkers, because, American dream, if you work for it, you'll get it. But even that's like a very flawed image, and yet nobody talks about how flawed it is. You just keep on going with that. Work hard, you'll get that, whatever that goal is. Like that simple succession of you do well in school, focus, you study, you go to a good school, you do, get a degree, you get a job, and, once you get a job, you settle down. As if life happens, linearly, without taking into account that there's a lot of shit that happens, and it's not going to be a smooth path. So, yeah, we want control because we kind of need to have it, but that's not how life works.
So, Christina, somebody who's working on, overcoming or at least living with your anxiety and overthinking, what would be a message you have to our listeners on their own journey when it comes to battling this issue?
I think it would be, it's okay. Honestly, everybody has their own journey, and I think one of the most important things that you can do when you're dealing with something like this is to practice a lot of self-compassion. And when you're self-aware and you realize, okay, I have this thing that I want to deal with, and assuming that, okay, you've decided it's a priority, right? Dealing with yourself nicely, like treat yourself nicely. One of my counselors actually said to me, if your friend came and told you all of these things, would you say, like, what would your response be? And I guess I'd never thought of myself or talking to myself as if I was my friend, because I'm a very supportive friend to everybody else but me. And that's one thing, that it was shocking, right? So I think my advice would definitely be, it's a journey, it's not an overnight thing, but practice a lot of self-compassion, and it's okay, like take one step at a time. You'll get there, or you'll get wherever you want to get.
Wow, you listened through to the end? Thank you.
Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at mind_shack_.
And if you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe on your preferred podcast platform or all of them.
There's going to be more exciting episodes to come.
So, see you on the next one.